Right. So is screen visible? Hmm?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now we are discussing landfills, right? So in this, we are going to discuss these topics, right? That is, so how to select a landfill site, right? Next, types of landfills, right? And components of landfills, and the description of liner system, and similarly description of cover system, and finally landfill planning, design, and operations, right? So now we discuss these one by one. In the last class, we have seen some photographs of landfills. This which is a hazardous waste landfill situated at Dindigal, right? Now, so here the site selection, right? When you want to select the site, what are the parameters generally we need to consider? Landfill site, let's say for Hyderabad, if you want to consider, or let us say for a district headquarters. So, what are the points we need to consider? Anyone? Points to be considered for selecting the site, right? So, all around you will have the site, right? All around the city, you will have the site. Right? Which one you will select? And which is better, or in other words, sites. Let's say if you select a site which is 100 kilometers away, is there any problem?
Transportation problem will be there.
Yeah. So that's why you need to calculate. First point is haul distance, right? It should be as minimum as possible, right? If it is nearer, you can save the transportation cost. But if it is nearer, what is the problem? Let us say, so your house is at the outskirts, just beside your house, if they plan a landfill. Is there any issue? You can throw it from the compound wall, right? Yes or no?
No, sir, because of the some smell and other things.
So from that point of view, it should be as away from the residential area as possible, right? So from the comfort and convenient point of view, so it should be away from the city, as away from the city as possible. But from the transportation point of view, it should be as near as possible. So haul distance, so you try to see it is as minimum as possible. And second one is, so restrictions, location restrictions. So restrictions means, so it should not be nearer to so and so, something like that, right? So generally, you will consider airport, floodplains, wetlands, and high seismic zones. Unstable area. Right? So, right, this landfill should not be nearer to this. Let's say if it is nearer to airport, so you will see so many birds and other things will fly. Let's say if a bird hits a flight, sometimes it will lead to accident. A small bird is sufficient uh, uh, for the aircraft to fail, right? So that's why it should be away from it, right? At least, so it should be 1 kilometer away from it, or not 1 kilometer, about 3 kilometers at least. It should be 3 kilometers away from the airport. And floodplains means if there is a possibility of flooding of that area, so you should avoid it. Right? So floodplains means if there is a flooding, what happens? It will that complete water enters into the landfill, and all the chemicals, contaminants which are there in the landfill will be mixed with water, and that will spread the entire area. That means, so you are spreading the contamination. That's why you should avoid in this floodplains. Similarly, wetlands where the crops can be grown, so you should avoid it. And high seismic zones or faults, right? So here, if you suspect that there is a possibility of seismic activity, right? So you will try to avoid that area, right? So here, zones means don't be under impression. Total entire India is divided into only 4 zones, right? So not the zones, right? Or let me say high seismic faults. Let us say even in Hyderabad, you will find that if there is any seismic activity, you will find around Borabanda, Jubilees. So only in that area you will find mild tremors in Hyderabad. Even in the last 20 years, so 2-3 times we heard. So there is a sudden seismic activity. So the rest of the activity, let's say in Kukatpalli area, so we don't we didn't felt any tremors, right? So if you select in such area, what happens if the landfill fails, right? So it will create a nuisance to the surrounding areas. right? So that's why you should not locate in that, right? So unstable zone, right? Let's say at a slow failures or something like that. So if you dump in a hilly area where if there is a possibility of slow failure, along with the slope, this will fail and it will spread. So that's why, so you should see that the restricted areas, right? And residential areas. So it should be at least 1 or 2 kilometers away from the residential areas because it will create nuisance of smell, rodents, right? Even the birds and all those things, right? So this is the second point which you need to consider, right? And next is availability of land. Means how much should be available? How much land should be available for landfill site? So this you should estimate. Let us say
Depends
if you
on
want to,
population, sir.
uh, yes,
Depends on population.
yeah, it's not exactly. So indirectly it depends on population. It directly depends on amount of generation of waste.
Waste. Interesting.
Right? So here, how much amount is generated? Right? Amount of generation of waste. So daily generation, how much it is there? And second point is growth of population, right? So let us say now if you consider Amaravati, right, our neighboring city, state, right? So now generation of waste is very less. Let us say now they are planning to shift to Visakhapatnam. Let us say if they want to continue Amaravati as a capital city, right? So now this growth of population will be an exponential, right? Now let us say in Amaravati area about 1 lakh population is there, right? So maybe in 5 years it may be 10 lakhs, in 10 years it may be 1 crore because of the importance of that place. That means you should estimate the growth of population, which generally you will study in environmental engineering, right? So these two, that means in other words, growth of population means it indirectly reflects. So this indirectly reflects future generation. In other words, so at least when you are designing a landfill, so it should cater to the city at least 20 years or 15 years, or at least in better way if it is 20, 30 years, it is still is better. So that means so you should